Hi, I'm Kate,
And I'm Toni, and
and
this
this
is
is
Sip
Sip
and
and
Stim.
Stim.
Pour a cup, take a break, settle down and join us on a whim. Gentle thoughts, honest talks, it's time for a sip and stim.
Welcome to Sip and Stim, where parenting on the spectrum pairs best with caffeine, coping skills, and stims. Well, it takes a village to make these podcasts, and we want to send a special thanks to Chris Helm, who so graciously donated to our mission. Chris wrote a book called Chicken Therapy, where she found solace in her quirky and loving flock of chickens. If you or someone else that you know has suffered a traumatic brain injury, or you just want to hear a story about hope and healing, please visit Amazon or chickentherapy.com. Thanks, Chris. Hi, Kate. So, how has your week been? Anything new, exciting, dramatic?
Everything is always dramatic in my life. This week, nothing really too fun with Grayson. But Rosalind, she won an outstanding orchestra award on Tuesday evening. So she won a 5 pound Hershey bar. And when she came in the door with that thing, Grayson went wild. Um, so he loves Hershey bars and he loves Chocolate World and all of that. It's one of his favorite places to go. And his eyes just completely lit up, and he just, you would have thought he saw Jesus because that kid was, he was loving it. So, yeah, but that's really it. How about you?
Um, Good, not bad. My son still has a sewing needle in his foot, but he's happy as a clam, so we have to figure that out. And my foot's finally healing. It's funny because I just bought one of those like walking pads because I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm just sometimes I'm just sitting and I just need to like do something. And of course, the like second day that I have it is when I hurt my foot. So I figured today would be day one of me trying to walk again without being in excruciating pain. Um, but no, things are going pretty well. Nothing too exciting except for, I mean, the good thing is I didn't realize it was Friday today. So that's good. Last week I thought Monday was Friday, so
Yeah,
that's a positive thing.
yeah, that was me last week too. This week I feel like it's just gone kind of slow, dragged on, and yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, time is
Uh,
an interesting concept.
yeah, that it is. Um, So, just jumping into today's episode, we are going to be talking about something that took a long time for me personally to adjust to, and that is the power of living in the present. So, ideas of living in today and not really dwelling on the past and dreading the future. I was one who used to live in the what ifs all the time, and now I am much more of a here and now type of person. So that's kind of what we're going to touch base on today.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited for you to share kind of some of your experience and how you got from there to where you are today. And then, you've shared you still have growth. I mean, I think we all do. So, just really interested in hearing that how that progression has gone for you.
Yeah, and a lot of it, honestly, I've contributed to the ACT therapy that I've done, and I am a huge advocate for parents to receive that therapy. Um, I know that not a lot of places really offer it or specialize in it, especially like tying it in with your ABA services, like our son's company does. Um, and honestly, it really is a beneficial service, not only for the parent or the caregiver, but ultimately for the child and the family as a whole unit. You often see a lot of families do family-based services, and it is very intrusive. And we have a enhanced program is what our ABA services are kind of categorized under. Essentially, it's 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And for a client to be considered for an enhanced program, they have to meet certain criteria. Grayson meets the criteria because he has significant self-injury, aggression, and unsafe behaviors. He likes to eat items that are not edible. And he also has a choking hazard with his brain condition that he has. He has difficulty swallowing. So it is kind of imperative that he has somebody with him 24/7 to really watch his eating and overall just for his safety. So he has the enhanced program through his ABA services, and um, just how invasive that is, it is very comparable to family-based care. Um, the family-based care, it really kind of focuses on the entire family unit, and you have multiple people coming into your house and working with the entire family as a whole. But with the ACT therapy that is offered through the ABA program that Grayson is currently enrolled in, they have a therapist who comes out to the house. So she comes to us. She works with, she started out working with Derek and I, and with Derek's chaotic schedule, it just didn't work out anymore that he received the services too. So I received the services just by myself. And honestly, it's fine. I meet with her weekly, biweekly, um, and we go over what's working, what's not working here at home. And we do grounding techniques, mindfulness, things like that, that really have helped me kind of let go of the past and live more in the moment. And I don't think that before I started those services that I was able to really do that on my own. Um, so yeah, I mean, I just see a huge benefit in it, and I wish that more people had more availability to be able to offer that service.
So it's really interesting because I feel like ACT has been a really big topic for us. And obviously it's been, I think it's safe to say like life changing and life enhancing for you and your family. And I am familiar with it. It is founded in behavior analysis, and it completely fits within um my field. But you know, there's all different types of ways of providing ABA, and but it's just been funny because more lately than not, this has been a topic that's come up with other professionals not related to
Mhm.
anything we're doing here. And I have used some strategies with my clients, but I would not consider myself an expert. So you actually inspired me. I actually pressed purchase in my Amazon cart, The Act Made Simple, by Russ Harris. And he has a lot of other great reads. I know Derek was sharing your husband about the happiness trap. Um, so yeah, I'm very excited. I'm looking to further get some professional development there, because I see the impact that it does have on families and individuals. So hopefully we can see more and more of that, in our field. That'd be really great for families.
Yeah, I think it's a great resource for people. And, you can't go wrong with learning some coping skills, as a parent or caregiver. I think we could all use, maybe an hour, if possible, an hour to ourselves to kind of just talk through our feelings and emotions. And, I'm not one who really ever bought into therapy per se.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I can definitely attest that ACT is definitely something that worked for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's every person might need a different resource, but I think the action behind it that you put behind the therapy, I think that makes a difference. Now, I will say, I actually have a relative who is a psychotherapist, and I was discussing something about, a challenge I was having with a client, and she pointed me in the direction of mindfulness, and it was extremely helpful. And then on top of that, not that we're here to talk about me today so much, but um, I notice I have these really strange like panic attacks if I'm driving in the car when it's dark and
Mhm.
there's like the, the Mack trucks coming your way, and I isolate it to that. And these weird thoughts go through my head, like I feel like I'm losing my teeth, like really strange things. And I don't know why it happens. Trust me, I have no clue. And I found that when I was in that position, because I drive a lot in my field, I started using mindfulness training, and it's what got me out of it. So I can attest to that aspect of, the strategies that you're using, that it works for me as an adult.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it can incorporate into anybody's life, really.
Hmm. So understanding autism and, kind of some of the typical thought patterns that one might have, what are some of the things that maybe you see in your son's life, your husband's life, your daughter's life, or that you might be just aware of, that are, let me, common cognitive patterns that you might see?
Um, well, there's a lot of it, it's hard to explain. There's a lot of different things. Um, Rosalind and Derek are very similar, as we've discussed in previous episodes. And they both perseverate on a lot of things. They both are very the pessimistic, doom and gloom type people. And Grayson and I are kind of like the fly by the seat of our pants. We are just kind of like free, loving, whatever. Um, and so I often see Rosalind feed off on Derek with his, you know, the apocalypse is coming type attitude. Um, and it is. I just noticed that they just dwell on a lot of things. And if something, even if it's something that is like not a big deal, at least to me, and they think it's a big deal, they will literally fixate on it forever. And it could be the dumbest thing, and it will ruin their day. Um, and that just, I don't get it. Um, I I just don't understand it. But it really does. I mean, it like impacts them immensely. And I don't see that with Grayson. I mean, Grayson gets upset if like he's color coordinating his like cars and something's out of order, but like it's just not it's not that serious. Um, but I do notice that like they both especially like to kind of focus more on the past. And with Rosalind, especially, she has like crippling fear and anxiety of like the future. Um, if you talk about the future, like what the future holds for Grayson, or, you know, the future with like, potentially Derek and I not being around someday, like she goes into full blown panic attack, meltdown. You mentioned the word group home. She is like beside herself. So we really kind of just don't focus on that with her. Um, she is very much a here and now type of kid too. You need to be like that with her, because if you're not, she's bound to either be stressing about the past or dreading the future and crying and having a panic attack.
That's tough. So it's almost like she's stressing about the her now and then also the future. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, and I don't want it to impact her. Like, I don't want her to have like PTSD from it later in life, but at the same time, we try to have these difficult conversations with her in a respectable way. Um, but I mean, it's hard when you have a kiddo who is, you know, very sensitive emotionally, like she is. It's it's very difficult. She often will bring up a topic and then you kind of go into it a little bit, and even though she brought up the topic, she gets so upset and the conversation needs to stop. And it's like me personally, like I just don't get it. But that's why I often say, Derek, you can deal with this. So he does. I mean, and he does it great. He handles those conversations really well. And I'm kind of there for the fun stuff with her, and we have the serious talks when we have to, but I just I just can't. I don't think on her level. Um, and I don't think I ever really will, to be honest.
Being an observer, Derek handles it very well. Are there strategies that he's using with her when she's in that place that are kind of like consistent, or is it just so confusing to you that you don't really see a trend that he's, you know, going towards when helping her?
I mean, I definitely see him use some, mindfulness and grounding techniques and things like that. Things to keep her focus on what they're doing in the moment. Um, but I think honestly, he just understands her so well that he probably just does what he would do for himself.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately don't know what that would be. Um, but I often see that he is very careful with what he says, and he thinks about what he is going to say and do before he does it with her. With Grayson, he's a little bit more um, just random and kind of, you know, just whatever. Because I think that that's just how Grayson is.
Yeah.
And I think that's just why Grayson and I are so very similar in many ways. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's hard for me to be able to say that, Derek does this or this, but I do think it's because they are so similar that they are able to just connect on a different level.
Yeah. So I see what you mean. That's his twin. Grayson's your twin. It completely makes a lot more sense now what you're saying there.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that a big part of ACT therapy is, training your brain to accept what you have going on in your life and not really, regrets or not having any regrets or fears about what's to come. It's really accepting what you have, the cards that have been dealt to you, and kind of moving on with your life, knowing that those are the cards that you're going to have. And that was a really big adjustment for me. Like I said, moving, you know, even when I was pregnant with both kids, thinking about the future for both of them would just really stress me out. And, the smallest hiccup along the way was like the end of the world. It was like a disaster. And thinking that way just made me feel just so stressed and made made my life more stressful. And I often think, for a parent of a child that maybe doesn't have a special need or have special needs, you know, I'm sure that there is worry and, you know, uncertainties as well. And I know that, you have your little ones, and, how do you see the future for your kids? Do you stress about that as well? Or like, how does that work for you?
I mean, I think that there is a layer of that, but I wouldn't say that it's something that's debilitating or that is a daily thought of mine. Um, there are times when I look at my kids, I'm trying to teach them to be good little people and, you know, um, be able, just to be decent human beings. And there are times where I'm like, well, I really hope I'm doing this right. And I hope that I'm not destroying them and traumatizing them. And there's kind of those thoughts, but I think it's pretty safe to say that the level of worry is significantly less. Um, I think there could be other environmental variables that families could face that could add to that worry, but I would say in our personal life, it isn't an overarching theme.
And does your husband kind of approach the parenting this like a similar way, or is he more kind of
So we're
opposite?
different. We're different, but we've um, become more similar. And there are times where I have to take my BCBA hat self and thought process off, even though I definitely am not, like I've shared, not the best BCBA at home. But there's times where I'm looking at a scenario and I'm thinking like this is the best way to approach it. And we'll have we might disagree. And there's times where you just kind of got to let it play out and then let time tell, like, that's not working. Let's try this way. So, and I will say, I will be the first to say that there are many times where things that I thought should have been dealt with in a certain manner were way better dealt with in my husband's like natural approach. So for sure, we're very different in our thought processes, but I would think as time has progressed, we're more aligned for sure.
Yeah, and that's I was just curious, I never really talked to parents really in general. My friends don't really have kids, and at least none that are of age that are old enough to really kind of have little personalities. I mean, they're all fairly new babies, so
Hmm.
just kind of curious to see how that worked for you and your family. Um, I'm still like in this whole like letting go of the past because I can be like completely honest with you. So I have severe OCD. I don't talk about it often. I don't really bring it up a whole lot. Um, but I mean, I've done countless hours of CBT. I've done like so many different medications, you name it, I've done it. And letting go of the past is one thing that like people with OCD, I swear, just cannot do. I have to check things like a million times. I have to do certain things certain ways, and it is like so annoying. And I know in my brain it's not right, but here we are. So that like I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, so letting go of the past is kind of like letting go of my OCD in a way. And just kind of, I don't know, maybe that's why I had such a hard time letting go because I have such a hard time with my OCD that it's like, okay, whatever.
No, that's very interesting though, because I don't really understand OCD in that way. I think I've come to have a greater understanding just because I've come in contact with several clients that have it and you know, being a good clinician, you should really look to try to understand a person more and that whole person. And I definitely have a greater understanding than I once had, but I've never actually had an adult be able to explain to me what goes through their mind when they're struggling with those patterns. Um, and I think it's pretty safe to say that a lot of people that have autism, either that is a symptom or that is a coexisting diagnosis that they have. So, um, I think thinking so when you say letting go of the past, what do you mean? Do you feel, is it like that you feel like thinking about it feels more comfortable? It's more, you already know what to expect, more predictable? Does it bring you more anxiety? Like, what does thinking about the past do to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely brings me more anxiety. Yeah,
Okay.
100%. Um, and when I think about things that have already happened, then I will kind of like replay things in my head, like, oh, I wish I would have done this differently, or I could have done this, or what if XYZ would have happened? That's the kind of thing that I think of, or I dwell on. And
Hmm.
until I really kind of kicked it into gear with the ACT, you know, all of the countless hours of CBT in the world didn't didn't touch base
Mm,
on all of that. And I've done exposure therapy because my OCD is also like counting things, checking things, and also cleanliness. And so things have to be a certain way, or I literally freak out. And I play it off so well, during the day and all of that stuff. But you can tell when the kids are like all worked up and Grayson's having a tantrum or something, I have to go and step out of the room and organize something, or like that's like my coping skill now.
Mm,
Um, yeah, so it's really interesting that it kind of like manifests it that way. And I can also tell, like Derek can tell when I am stressed out or if I'm like upset about something, I don't even need to say anything. If I'm cleaning like on my hands and knees with the grout brush and I'm scrubbing the grout of our tile, he knows, like, just don't even talk to me. So it's kind of funny that that's how that works. But yeah, and I don't yeah, it's weird. It's really hard to explain, and it is hard to explain OCD, I think. Unless you live it, I mean, it's like having a kid with autism. You can't explain it unless you live it. It's,
hmm
people might look from the outside and be like, "Oh, I know what that's like," but you have no idea. It's
Yeah.
just you have to live it to know. Um, and it just getting those intrusive thoughts, like the fact that, like for me, my thing is checking the door before I leave. If that door is locked and I know in my brain it's locked because I've locked it, I know for a fact I can leave because I have locked the door. I still have to check it 4 times. I don't know why. And it makes no sense, but at the end of the day, I have to check it. I checked it and then I can move on. Um, I just, I think it's weird. I'll be the first person to say I'm completely weird. Um, but, but it's not like I mask myself. Um, but it definitely is. There's a lot of things that go through my head. So, it's funny when Derek's like, "Oh, yeah, Kate's the only one who's non-autistic. She's neurotypical." I am so not neurotypical. I I am probably like the least neurotypical out of everybody in this house because I'm the one who does all the crazy weird things and everybody else is like, yeah, I have autism. I do normal things that autistic people do. And I'm like, I have OCD. I have no freaking idea what that means. Like, whatever. So sorry, I just went off on like a total
No,
random tangent, but
this
I
is
swear
so
it ties in with this.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I love learning this. Like, I never knew this about you. And actually, it's funny that you mentioned the part about Derek saying, like, she's neurotypical. I was actually thinking in my head, well, maybe no, she's not. And like, for me, that's not a negative thing. I mean, I think I've shared this before. Like, I love quirks in people. I think it just makes people interesting and fun, and it makes the world more exciting. And I think, like, OCD is one of those things where the term is so overused and incorrectly used. And like for me, little things that you share, and I'm not self-diagnosing myself, and I don't think I have OCD, but I hear little things and I'm like thinking of my own self and I'm like, huh, I can think of a scenario when that applied. It's definitely not something that's again like overarching or happens, you know, every day, but I think hearing little tidbits of this, like, talking about dwelling in the past, there's definitely times where I thought back and I'm like, literally to like my high school years. I remember one time I was sitting on a bus and I got upset over someone over not giving me money back for something. And then I thought about it and I'm like, wow, that was really wrong. They didn't owe me money. And like just like weird stuff like that where it literally like if I think about it too long, I like cringe and it just yeah, I just like spiral. But and I
Mhm.
don't think that's anything too atypical of most people. Um, so I think, this makes a lot of sense. And at the same time, I think a lot of people are like me, and it could be a character, people that have autism could have characteristics like this. And I don't claim to have autism, but like predictability, not knowing what's to come in the future. I think most people struggle with that. Like the unknown is terrifying.
Mhm.
So I think for me, it's like a little bit confusing to reason, you know, thinking of the past. So because sometimes it does have this component of feeling safe, you already know what's played out, but then there is this component of like, oh, like why did I do that, like can we erase that history,
Mhm.
or that memory, hope no one remembers me from that time in my life because that was embarrassing. um
Mhm.
but I guess just letting go of that, like it is what it is. Let it be. Like you said, it
Yeah.
is what it is. We're here. This has happened. Maybe what happened then is still currently, presently something we're dealing with now. Um, so yeah, I think it does bring a greater understanding to why letting go of the past is important.
Well, and the same with dwelling on the future. A similar thing with all of that, including, similar to the past, dwelling on the past, I guess. Most people who have OCD often have it because they need to feel in control of something, or that's like the main reason behind it. And for me, yeah, perseverating on the past because of something that didn't go my way might be something that I would have done in the past. I don't feel like I do that as much anymore. Um, but dwelling on the future would look like me, like not having like like not knowing what a schedule was going to look like. And when we would go on vacation, like I needed to have an itinerary planned out for every single day, for every single like moment of the day. And if something didn't go the way that I wanted it to go, like I would lose it. Um, and I think using the ACT therapy, yeah, it's not specifically for OCD, but I mean, it really kind of helped me work through a lot of those thoughts and feelings like I needed to be in control of the situation. Because in life, nobody really has control. You don't have control over, yeah, you can do certain things and, you know, plan certain things, but does life really go to plan every single time?
Right, for
It's,
sure.
and that's the kind of mentality that I needed to start following. And honestly, I'm so much happier now. I have like no doom and gloom. I mean, yeah, I'm still worried about like, a bomb going off in my backyard someday. Like, I'm not gonna like sit here and like, you know, make a trench. Like, it's just not, maybe me 10, 15 years ago would have, but not now. I just kind of go with the flow, and if it happens, it happens. It's the same that's the same mentality I take with the kids. If Grayson, you know, poops and smears it on the wall, guess we have poop on the wall today. Like I just, even though it kills my OCD, and it does, um, I have had to let go of a lot of things and learn to kind of deal with it. Derek always jokes that, only a higher power would be cruel enough to give me a child with autism because of
It
my
seems like
OCD.
the perfect match, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm just over
Yeah.
here thinking like, wow, I did not know this aspect of your guys' lives. And it's kind of, not to be cruel, Kate, it's kind of comical.
It is. No,
Like
it
just to
is.
see like yeah, you're definitely being stretched and definitely having to shape yourself and yeah, it could be terrible, but you seem like you're doing great with it. And do you feel like your OCD causes you to dwell in the future? Is that something that it kind of causes? Or is it more so just being a mom of a child that has needs and you're not sure what the future will bring? Or like you're saying, like, not knowing the state of the world and those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all of that. My biggest thing was like when we were trying to figure out what exactly was wrong with Grayson, not what was wrong with him, but what was going on. I was so adamant about having an answer, and I needed to have an answer that was, you know, clear. Um, I didn't want to settle for just, well, we think that this is what's going on, but we're not really sure. And I mean, we went to so many different specialists, and eventually, yeah, we had some answers, but even to this day, we don't have all of them. And that really, it took me a lot of time to step back and realize that, you know, it's okay if we don't have all of them. And you know what? We probably won't. have all of them someday.
Right.
Um, and that is okay. And now, that I've kind of changed my thinking and the ways that I, am processing things. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that I am okay with it now. Um, but when he started having issues and, I was so adamant, I was doing research be like you would not believe. I was doing hours and hours of research. I've learned so much stuff about the brain and genetics and things like that because I was doing so much research. And I was adamant that we were going to find, this is exactly what is going on with Grayson. And I think that that really was kind of driven partially by my OCD, um, because I needed to be in control of that situation. Um,
Hmm.
and, even looking back, the one thing that I still dwell on that I think could also be because of like not being in control in a situation, was when he was born, not pushing for further testing. When he was born with the umbilical cord knot that he had and the port wine stain on his face, like I really should have pushed for him to have an MRI and testing done while he was still at the hospital. I didn't because I didn't know. But looking back now, I'm, sometimes I could kick myself like, you know, I really should have kind of done research into it, but they kept telling me, oh, it's a stork bite, whatever. Oh, a umbilical cord knot, that's so rare. We've never seen that before. That's so awesome. It's not awesome. It really kind of screwed a lot of things up.
Hmm.
And there's a reason why, the doctor who delivered him had only seen two in her entire life. It's because they're not common. And if they were, it would have kind of been a little bit easier to understand what was to come. Um, and so those are the things that I've really noticed that, you know, I'm either dwelling on or I'm always kind of perseverating on, I guess I should say. Um, and I do think that that is partially because I don't have control of those situations.
Right. So what kind of helps you come back to the present? Like when you're in that place, what are the things that you do to get yourself back to the here and now? Because it seems like when I hear you talk, you you seem like you're in this place of more spontaneity, and I see the smile on your face when you talk about like where you are. So it's clear that you are in a much healthier place than you once were. Do you have any insight in there? What you do to help yourself get back to the present?
Honestly, I I really don't know. I think often, you know, there's a lot of things in this world that we can't control. It's like the weather. We it happens. It impacts all of us. And if it rains, you put up an umbrella and you deal with it. And that's kind of how I see things. And that's just what I kind of think about. It's all about just kind of you accept what you have and you move forward. And I also often think that there are way worse things in this world.
Hmm.
And I do say that to Derek a lot too. I tell him, our kid could be in a hospital dying of cancer.
Hmm.
And that is like a huge one that I tell him all the time. Things could be so much worse. And we are nowhere close to that. So I always like to try to kind of bring it back to what we do have, what the positives are, like what's going well, um, and what I do have control of in that moment. Um, and it really does help. It helps kind of bring things full circle, and it allows, me to kind of clear my mind and be appreciative of the things that I do have and that, are going well in my life.
Yeah, it seems like it's just kind of really you've adopted that mindset, and that mindset is just really part of your every day now, which I think is great. I know some of the techniques that that you might get from ACT or like mindfulness, um, grounding techniques, structure reflection time, really focusing on your interests. There are some strategies out there that maybe those are things that you just kind of implement naturally in your life. Um, but there are tools, and I think that's why ACT is such a good therapy and very applicable that, highly recommend. Um, so, you kind of shared, and as we're talking, I hear like you're you're sharing about some of the past experiences and your thought processes with that, and you're dwelling on the future. And it doesn't seem like it's just this like all or nothing thing. It seems like it's a process, and you've shared that there's still things you're improving with. And, you just hearing you talk, you can tell there's certain things that still do seem to impact you and create kind of an emotional response. Um, would you say it's kind of normal to have setbacks, or is the process always linear, and, is the trend always straight and clear, or is it kind of up and down?
Oh yeah, I think it definitely is up and down. Um, I mean, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I think, but to get there, you're definitely going to hit a lot of speed bumps. We, as a family, have had times where things are going great, and we think, we're really getting somewhere. And then Grayson will have like a huge seizure, and we lose all of the sounds that he's been making. Or like he was saying words a couple years ago. He had like 3 or 4 words he was saying. And then he had a huge seizure that just, I mean, he lost all of it. All of the signs he was doing, he lost everything. And that's really discouraging. Um, and so when it's little things like that, you kind of do feel like, you know, w why am I trying to see the positives when, it's not really worth it? Um, but it is worth it. It is. And, it's not like changing my mentality happened overnight. It took a long time to happen. Um, I mean, I've been in ACT now for almost 3 years, 2 years or 3 years. And like I said, it's an every week thing. And even in between sessions, I mean, I have to work at it. It's it's definitely not something that, you know, will just continue to progress without putting the effort in. And yeah, I do have setbacks, especially when incidents like, Grayson having a seizure or something like that happens. Um, and that is normal. And it took me a while to also realize that, I was going to have ups and downs, but it is. And if you just accept that and you realize that you are going to have, situations that arise like that, it it is so much easier to just kind of move forward knowing that at least you're still moving.
Right. Growth over perfection, I think, would be, the goal there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was a great conversation, Kate. I think that all of the information will be very helpful for our listeners.
Yeah, and I think again that, try living in today and not looking back at yesterday or thinking about tomorrow. It really is, the present is something that you can practice coming back to it every time. Join us next time as we talk about comorbidities and diagnoses that accompany autism.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to check us out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. Like, comment, leave a suggestion on future topics that might be of interest to you. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Sip and stim, sip and stim.